so that when they do come up that we already prepared.
I really don't have an answer for it. I'm new, so I'll just have to defer to the others.
Okay. A growing number of parents are choosing non-traditional methods of educating their children, including charter school, hybrid, and homeschool. HB 215 from 2023 will push this further. What role should ASD serve in supporting these families?
Bill's new to me. Does this deal with vouchers? Is it kind of voucher related?
Yeah.
So I'm a supporter of choice. So I think parents should be able to choose which school that their kids go to. As far as on the public school side, I think the disadvantage for a public school is that public school teachers have assessments that they report back to the state, whereas charters don't have the same assessments. So I think it'd be nice if both on the private charters and the public schools, that they could both be assessed the same way, just so we make sure that, you know, what are the graduation rates, how are the scores. But I do believe that, you know, if a parent wants to take their kid to a certain location, they should be able to do that.
So I think it's an exciting time to be in education, right? The choices available to parents for their students, we have more than we have ever seen before. So I know we have some families that do hybrid, so they might do homeschool for part of their day, and then they come to their local neighborhood school. Some of them are in a charter school, or they're working in a homeschool co-op. And so I think the best thing we can do is continue on the way we're going. So when parents come in and say, here are my child's needs, here's what they'd like to pursue, what do you have that fits this? And, you know, counselors and admin can sit down with them and go through. Sometimes there are other physical or mental health needs that we need to take into consideration. And so our role is to make sure that any child that comes through our doors is going to get the best education they can, and we're going to meet their needs. And so this is an exciting time to have a lot of choices.
We'll go for another spicy one. Okay, if I can't read your handwriting, here we go. Okay, shout it out for me, I'm gonna try. In June 2019, the USBE issued an LEA model policy. The model policy states, a staff member shall not engage in any conduct toward or sexual relations with a student, including viewing with a student or allowing a student to view pornography or any other sexually explicit or inappropriate images or content, whether video, audio, print, text, or other format. So this is kind of a two-part question. So we'll start with Brian. What will you do to ensure LEAs are familiar with and follow this policy?
So what's an LEA? First of all, I don't even know what that term is.
So like Alpine is LEA, or it could be individual school.
Yeah, so it's like a local education
And it's a law.
authority. So it's yes.
Yes.
So what would you do
to support it?
No, what would you do to ensure that schools and the district are familiar with and follow the policy?
So if it's a law, as Stacy said, the board, one of their duties is to bring policy forward, right? My assumption is, I haven't researched it, that Alpine School District already has a policy that addresses that. If not, I would suggest that we bring that in so that we're compliant with the law. But I'm in support of the bill, if that's really what you're trying to get at. And what could I do to enforce it? Well, we are the board, and there's 7 members, and if the majority of the board votes, which I would be voting for, I would hope that our administration would follow the law.
And then Stacy, why did you wait to ask LEAs to be compliant, and have you defended the materials that have been found in schools?
Do you want me to answer both of those?
Yeah.
Okay. So the bright line rule already exists. So if any materials violate the bright line rule, they get pulled. There is no process for that. If there is something that does not violate the bright line rule, we do have policy 6160. So a teacher or a parent can bring that forward and say, we believe that this book violates the policy. Each individual school has a committee made up of both staff members and parents. And so then they go through a process and they determine, is this something they can either retain it, they can remove it, or they can restrict it. And so if it's restricted, parents can come in and say, you know, I don't want my child to read this. We do that. I've not known many parents to do it, but it is an option. And I am supportive of following the process. So we have a lot of processes that we use in our work. And I think the minute that we start to try and jump a process, we get into trouble. So I'm supportive of letting individual communities decide when something doesn't violate the bright line rule. If they don't believe it's up to community standards, then they get to determine if that's something that stays in their school.
We'll go to another administrative question. With the Alpine School District's budget at nearly $600 million, what experience do you have managing budgets and revenue streams?
So our budget has been upwards of $1 billion when we have the different COVID support money coming in. And so that was an interesting process to go through as we determined what things match those funds for the COVID relief. I've been on finance, like I said, for 3 years, and it's been kind of a fascinating process to go through. We get, I say it's my least favorite meeting of the year when we do our capital budget because we look at how much money we have and the list of needs we have, and it's pretty intense. This year we've also got, with our operations budget, where our needs are always in excess of the money we have. And so I think we have really good conversations between staff and board members, that there are 3 of us that serve on that committee, in terms of what are the best ways that we can spend our money that are beneficial to children. And then I've also been on a number of nonprofit boards that don't quite run that big of a deal, but of a budget, but do have different revenue streams. So fairly comfortable in that area.
Well, I started my business in construction management, and currently, just to give you an example, obviously Alpine School District is a much larger business, 10,000 employees, 84,000 students, 90-something schools. But I do run a building business, and budgets are super important. We're doing a $75 million job for Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz right now in Provo. Budget is everything. So I have employees, I have payroll. You know, payroll doesn't come for free. You got to make sure you have money in the bank to pay the payroll on Fridays. In addition to that, we're running a 1,500 unit subdivision in Salem. It's been about a 3-year project, 400 unit up in Heber, a couple hundred units in American Fork. So I understand budgeting, I understand personnel and people, and I also believe that this all comes from our tax funds, which I think are sacred. And so I think it's super important to make sure that we make those dollars stretch as well as possible.
That's great.
What are your views on preserving the preeminent role of parents?
I think parents should make decisions for the school, you know, as far as related to their kids. Like I said, I'm a parent like Stacy. I have children in the school district, and I think it's super important that parents have a choice in how the schools are ran. I think that's why there's local school boards, right? So, anyway. I don't know what I can say.
Parents are their child's best advocate. I have 5 children, and each one of them have a very different set of needs and personalities. And so I think we very much look forward to the ways and appreciate the ways that we engage with parents. We have opportunities for parents to be on the school community council. So that's managing the land trust money that comes from the state for each individual school. We also have opportunities in PTA and other volunteering avenues. And so I know we're better when we have parents in school because they can see what's going on. They know their kids and their community. And it's a relationship that we appreciate and that we, I think we spend a lot of time talking with our parents and understanding their perspective and the challenges for their students. And I think it's part of what makes us strong together.
Okay. How would you support all students?
So I have tried for years to make sure that the decisions I make, whether the student is in one geographic area or another, or whatever their needs are, that we are making sure that we are putting our focus and our resources to help them. So some of the things that we've done the last couple of years, we switched the way that we determine how many administrators or support service, counselors, social workers, psychologists are in schools. So we've added some money in that area so a principal can say, hey, we brought the ratio down to add another assistant principal. They can determine where those numbers go. We also put more money into, we call them FTEs, that's just the number of full-time employees, so that as principals are kind of building their schedules, that they're making sure that they are putting money in the places that students need it the most, so that each location has a little more direct impact on that. And I think we just keep putting money where it needs to be. So hopefully we reach all kids. I know that we don't get everybody to the best ability, but we do our very best with what we have.
I've only been involved in Alpine School District for a few months, to be honest, and so I've watched Stacy, I've watched the board members, and I think Stacy and the board members have done a wonderful job in doing exactly what she says, and I think she means it and does it. And so if I were elected, I would try to continue that same path. A lot of times in the school district is you got majority rule, right? And so with majority, that often leaves out a minority. And so it would be my goal also to make sure that all children are looked after. And I think Stacy's done a great job with that in many aspects, you know, with the 7 different special education programs the school has and many other terms that she's using that I don't even quite know what they mean. But I do believe that she and the other board members do their best, and I would try to continue that same thing.
Love this question, as I today opted my child out of all testing. I'd forgotten to this year. The school called me, they're like, we're doing testing and your child doesn't opt out, and you always opt them out. How will you protect children from data mining as well as psychological surveys?
Don't even know what that stuff is. I'm making a list right now, data mining and psychological surveys. I will look to my wife to protect my own kids on that stuff. I don't even know what that stuff is. So I'm gonna waste your time if I give you an answer, but I'm happy to listen to Stacy's response on that one.
Data privacy is huge, and we literally have people who are assigned to making sure those things are protected, and if there is a breach that we let people know. I very much support parents' right to decide if they want their child to be tested in any way. So whether that's an cadence test for literacy, or we're looking at math, or it's more of a social emotional test, absolutely. If a parent doesn't want their child to be engaged in that, then they can absolutely opt them out, and that is their choice to make. And I think on our end, on the tech side, we just work really hard to make sure that the people and the companies that we're working with understand our expectations. So we're in compliance with both the law and parent expectations.
I actually have a follow-up question for that. There was a bill that recently passed the legislature that will be going into effect that talks about collecting more data than is necessary from any government entity, and school district would be one of those, and also retaining data past its necessary date. What will you do to ensure that schools aren't collecting data that isn't necessary and that they don't retain that data, because those create potential issues?
So one of the things that's been new to our district is with admins, our leadership team does Moments That Matter. And so that's one of the avenues in which they would go over something like this to just, hey, be aware, we want to make sure that we're following these processes. There are a couple different ways we send things out to school. There is always a written way, it's usually talked about in a meeting, and then there's follow-up reminders. And so I think that we are really clear on our end in terms of what the expectations are. If somebody brings forth a concern, then we do an audit just to make sure everything is in its right place. And so I think we are all very invested in protecting privacy and only keeping information as long as we need it.
I agree with everything Stacy said, and I honestly don't know much about it, but I will research it.
Where do you stand on safeguarding religious freedom and conscience in the classroom?
So say the question again, how will I?
Where do you stand on preserving religious freedom and conscience in the classroom?
Yeah, so I think there should be religious freedom, and I don't have an issue with it. You want to be more detailed than that?
That's
I mean,
all it says, is where do you
so
stand
I
on safeguarding religious freedoms and conscience?
I think it's awesome to have the Pledge of Allegiance at school, and I think students should be able to practice religion how they feel. I believe there should be a place for those that don't believe in religion and people that do believe in religion, no matter what the religion is. So to me, I think school should be separate from religion. I think they're two different things, but I don't think somebody should be categorized because they have religious views in a negative way.
My daddy was a Marine, so I grew up from the time I was a small girl understanding how important an individual's religion and personal it is to them. I think that we need to be very conscious of what any group of students, whatever their faith may be. Some right now are in a season where they are fasting, and so that impacts your ability to be in a classroom and learning if you were not eating for a large span of time. Sometimes that means that they leave early to be able to get to a religious service for whatever holiday may be there. So I think we just do our very best to make sure that we are accommodating their needs and we're aware of those things that are most important to them. And I would protect that very much so.
At least one ASD school board member has said the basics no longer cut it in today's society and that we need a lot more programs for today's students. Could you please state your comments on that?
I think that might have been me who said that.
That's hilarious.
So you could have just said, you said once. And really what I was saying with that is we get some feedback sometimes that people aren't supportive of the social emotional aspect in school, and that we just need to do math and reading. And really our goal here is that we're preparing students so that when they exit K-12, that they have the skills necessary that they need to go out and thrive in the world. You've got to have technology in there. You have to have a good understanding of history. We like to get the art side to round people out because we want well-rounded students. So those core classes obviously are essential to anything, but we do ourselves a disservice when we don't talk about all the other skills and the attributes that students need so that they can go out and be good members of society.
You want bad members of society? Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, I didn't do well in math and reading, and I love the humanities and geography. I seem to get better grades in those. But anyway, no, I believe the basics are important, but I also believe well-rounding in other classes are also important. I don't even know what the controversy is there. I thought we all take, 6 or 7 different types of classes, whether it's music, PE, math, reading, science. I hope that's still what's going on in the district. And I think they're all super important to me.
I've heard some people say that the electives is what got them through school, right? They didn't like, maybe they weren't good at math. Math was my thing, but I didn't like the other things. So. Do you support the current Alpine School District display policy? And along with that, do you support the display policy allowing pride flags in classrooms? Sorry.
Oh, another wonderful one.
Spicy.
Again, I think I've said this before. If not, I told myself this a million times, so I figured the question would come up. To me, anything that's controversial takes attention away from, I think our most important thing is to teach the kids. And so if you allow a certain flag in a classroom, no matter what the flag is, whether it's, I support police officers or I support firemen or whatever it is, I think that if something like that's going to draw contention within the school, I think it's bad for the school. So I believe that we should support a flag of our United States. I think we should support the flag of our state of Utah. And then whatever school it is, whether it's a high school, a middle school, or whatever. But at the same time, it's not because I think anything less of a certain group of people. I honestly think all kids should be treated the same. But I also believe that if it's going to cause divisiveness, I think it's harmful to the learning environment.
So one of the coolest things about flags in our classroom is it's a way for our teachers to connect with their students. So I know one of our teachers is a very big Celtics fan. I'm a Lakers girl. I don't understand it, but I appreciate the love and the passion for a sport. So right away, kids walk in and they're able to connect with her, whether it's because they're basketball fans or they're Boston's fan. And I know around here we have some pretty intense rivalries about our local universities and where people put their fan base there. And I think it's just a great chance for kids to learn more about their teachers, for them to see themselves represented in things. And I think we need to be careful because the minute we start to pull down anything, then we're just gonna have some really blank, empty walls. And if a kid can walk in and see something and feel connected to someone, I think that's a fantastic thing.
What about the question?
The pride flag specifically.
Why did you want to change the display
Oh,
policy?
that's the motion, please.
Sorry, we didn't just say, did you support to change the display policy to allow pride flags in classrooms?
So there was nothing that specifically prohibited it until the bill came along. I personally don't think a pride flag is political. And so we have some students who very much, they see that flag and they know they are in a space where they are supported. And so I don't believe that it's a political thing.
Please share your vision on the role of parents in education.
I love any opportunities that we get to work with parents, right? So sometimes there are parents that want to talk and have a conversation about something that is affecting their child. Spent a lot of time on the phone last week with some parents at Lehigh High School who are concerned because of some programs that are being cut. And so for me, it is a temperature check of knowing where's the community, where are their thoughts, what are things that are important to them. And so I hope that we always continue. We have a variety of ways that parents can collaborate with us. So whether that's being on their school SEC or being part of PTA, or they're choosing to submit like a written public comment or come and give us a comment at board meeting. And then we always have the opportunity to follow up with them later. So people submit an online comment and they're in my area, and make sure that I circle up. Did they get all of their concerns resolved? I love when we get feedback. I think that's the way that we get better when parents say, hey, I noticed you're doing this. Here are some things that I think may be helpful. I think that definitely helps us do our job better.
It's my view that parents should be deeply involved in school. For instance, my wife's not here tonight. It's not because we're in a fight. It's because she's actually, Skyridge High School has a trip going to Washington DC in a little bit. And she's on some committee and they're having that meeting tonight. But anyway, and likewise myself, I try to participate in any ways that I can, whether it's through fundraising or just volunteering wherever it's needed. But I think that's what makes our community so strong. And I think Alpine School District does, at least in the areas where I've seen, does a wonderful job with that. I think there's a lot of engagement by the parents, and I think that's what makes Alpine School District as strong as it is today.
How would you work with the local cities and communities to support students and children?
Well, I'd like to get to know them. I think that local cities play a vital role. A lot of times, one thing that just comes off my mind is that, maybe say it's with sports. I think there's a lot of city-owned land that's used for, schools. But in my job right now, I run a planning and development business also, and we spend a lot of time with a lot of cities. I've spent times with, Weaver, American Fork, Springville, Provo, Salem. Haven't spent any with Lehigh, other than when we build our own home there. But I feel like I have the skills to meet with city councilmen, different city officials, and can use whatever value I have to bring resources together. Maybe there's things we can share with the city and also the city with us.
So I have to say, we enjoy a really fantastic relationship with Lehigh City, with our council members, with our mayors. I'm in regular conversation with most of them, and by regular, sometimes that means daily, sometimes it's weekly, but we're really good about communicating, hey, this is coming up on our end. What does it look like on your end? Hey, by the way, these are the developments we're improving. A couple of ideas that I think illustrate what a great place Lehigh is. I'll touch on AF in a minute. When Viewpoint opened, so I don't know if any of you are in that area, but the traffic situation was not ideal. And we kind of knew going into it, but the way the process goes, has to open, you have to have cars before you can do something. And so I made a call on the first day of school. Hey, Luke, we need some help. And they sure did come right up. And by the next morning, they had a way that we were going to change the traffic flow. So it was a little bit longer of a ride, but it made it very clean and people were safe, which is our priority. And then the second thing I was going to say, Lehigh Police Department, in the last year, they've created a Communities That Care Coalition. And so we, several Alpine people have come on kind of an advisory role to say, here are the areas we're focused on. What else are you doing to make sure that we are not duplicating resources and that we're able to get a larger group of people. And so it's not something that I take lightly, because I do appreciate the time that the city council members and the mayor and their staff put in to make sure that we are all on the same page and that we're being as proactive as we can. And then American Fork, Mayor Frost is fantastic.
What do you see as the most important way to decrease suicidal thoughts and improve mental health? 1 minute, done.
You think you know what you're getting into in a job, and then you find out very quickly that you don't. And we have lost too many students. We try really hard to make sure that people know what resources are available, who they can reach out to. We've got posters going a couple years ago on the Suicide Prevention Coalition. I approached my group with an idea about a magnet. Hey, can we send it out to every household in our boundaries because this touches everybody. And several people have come forward since then to say, because I have this on my fridge, I knew the number to call, or I knew I could call 911. And so I think it's just an education piece. And as we work with different members of our coalition, we try to get the information out in any avenue we can. We're looking at doing some additional things in more public spaces so that in areas we know are kind of high traffic for that, just so people know that there are options and that they have alternatives, because I will tell you, it is the most gutting part of this job when we lose students and we want them to live. So I think we just continue doing what we're doing, educating people, offering resources when we can.
That's a super sad thing. We were in Mesquite, I think like 2 Saturdays ago, maybe 3 Saturdays ago. And my son was down there for a 7v7 tournament. And there was a bunch of kids from the Skyridge High School on the team. And I think something happened at Skyridge, maybe related to this. I'm pretty sure that happened. And I could see a change in my boy and his friend's countenance. I mean, I could physically see a difference in them feeling sad. And so I can't imagine being a parent or people that know that individual. So I don't know how to stop that stuff. But I do believe that whatever the school district can do as far as training to maybe teachers are super close to these individuals, probably see them as much as maybe sometimes as their parents. Training to the students, and certainly like to dive into that and figure out what that's being done, but just they need a safe place, you know. People need to be able to recognize maybe some of the signs, and you gotta figure out how to cut it back more.
These next questions are gonna be yes or no. So I'm gonna ask a question, and I just want each of you to say yes or no. Do you support teaching critical race theory?
Me first?
Yeah.
No.
No, but we should get a clarifying.
The next one,
10 seconds.
Yes.
do you support diversity, equity, and inclusion programs?
I support ensuring that all students are successful.
And
You want a yes or a no?
Yeah.
So I would say that's the question again?
do you support diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI programs?
No, not the program.
Do you believe in teaching gender ideology?
No.
Do you believe the NEA is a positive force on education?
What did Stacy say to the last one?
She said no.
She said no.
Yes.
Do you believe the NEA is a positive force on education?
That's the National Education Association, so the union.
Yeah.
So I think there's good things with the union, yes.
Okay. One more, sorry, I just texted 2 days ago. Someone didn't get their stuff in on time, so they texted to me. Well, that was kind of answered, it was about bonds, and you guys kind of answered about bonds. So I'll ask this
Was
one.
it about the lease revenue bond or GO bond?
The GO one. So this is a different one. This is Alpine School District is the largest district in the state with over 6,000 employees. What executive and administrative experience qualifies you to serve on the executive board of such a large organization? So this is not a yes or no, obviously. but Brian will have you words.
I've never ran an organization that big. The advantage to being on a board is there's 7 individuals, and I believe with 7 people, 7 minds are super smarter than one. But I have ran a company of 250 employees, you know, it's nothing, it's a drop in the bucket compared to 6,000. But really what it comes down to is we're choosing the superintendent, like Stacy said in one of the first questions. And I think Shane Farnsworth does a marvelous job, and he's the administrator. So I look to him as being the person that oversees a lot of it.
So we're actually over 9,000. We're closer to almost 10,000 employees.
I think I was probably looking at FTEs, not part-time. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're the second largest employer in Utah County. So we are very invested in our people, and I have spent the last almost 4 years learning everything I can, taking everything that I brought prior to coming to this role. And again, I do think we need to be clear on what the role of the board is and what the role of the superintendent is. So the board hires the superintendent and the BA, and then every 2 years, you know, well, every year we do thank you, evaluation. And then every 2 years, their contracts come up for renewal. And so if the superintendent is, we are all going the same direction and we're meeting goals, and that's great. And if the board chooses to go another direction, then they have that option as well.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so we're gonna have 2 more questions. Next one's only 30 seconds, and then we'll do your closing statement. So that's the second question. So the next one is, why did you run the school board? Or why are you running this time? 30 seconds.
So I've spent my whole life in public education, and I've seen a lot of things. And I served in PTA at the district level, where I worked with everybody across the board. And I saw the great things that were happening, and I saw some areas that I thought there could be improvement. I am lucky enough to have kind of the luxury of time in my life, and I have the time to put into this job and to be in our schools and to bring things forward that I see. And so I just really wanted to make a positive difference, try to fill in some of the areas that we needed to be improved on, and feel lucky to get to do the job.
So a little bit likewise, I haven't been involved in public education at all in my life, but I've had family that is, and I've always been taught as within my family being raised is that it's good to give back to your community. And I felt like this is a great way, an opportunity for me. I do have also a lot of available time, and I would like to give back to my community. My grandpa, Baugh, was a Lincoln Junior High principal. My uncle Stephen Baugh was the Alpine School District superintendent for many, many years. My mom was a school teacher. My 2 sisters, some of you may know Kimberly Bird, that's my sister. She works in the district. Before that, she was also a school teacher and such. My other sister's down in Washington County, so school education is super important to me. And I wanted to run because I also believe that 50% of our student population is young men. And I think it would be important to have a young man's voice on the board.
All right, and then closing statements. So, do either of you care to go through? You went first, so if we start with you and end with you, that's maybe a bit of an unfair advantage. Why don't you go first on this closing statement?
Happy to do so.
2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes for the closing statement.
All right. I love my job. It is a super hard job, and it's probably one of the most challenging things I've done in terms of representing a very large group of people that all have very differing thoughts and points of view and needs. I see the work that we've done and the progress that we've made, and I think there's more work to do. I think in terms of the upcoming reconfiguration, that it's not an if, it's a when. And I have invested a lot of time in my life into students, into employees, and I would very much like the opportunity to get us through this transition process and to make sure that if that is indeed what the voters want, that we are taking care of everybody. Teachers have a lot of angst about what's going on. We have a lot of students with different needs. We have our special needs students who need better facilities and more resources than they have right now. And so I would very much like the opportunity to continue that work, to improve on what we have, and so that we can meet everybody's needs.
And I would just ask for each of your guys' vote, or I guess it's really your delegates. And I guess delegates don't really vote, but I
No,
guess
they
it's
vote
more-
at convention,
They vote at convention.
but not, yeah.
So I ask for your vote. I'm not as experienced as Stacy as far as in the day-to-day as the school board, probably like she was when she was first named also. but I can promise you this, that I will put the time in. I like to study. I'm a quick learner, but I also know that there's a lot to learn. I think I'm a great planner. I think I'm a great visionary. I think I'm a positive person. I think that I am a person that knows how to handle issues civilly and be able to reach out to all parties. In law, you got a lot of times it's all about negotiation and hearing everybody's input. So I want you to know that I am one that will listen to the community, and I will take those back to heart and listen. I want you to know that I care about kids, care about their education. I think it's important. And at the same time, to know that there's some people in our community that don't have kids in school anymore. Maybe they're on a fixed budget. And so taxes mean a lot too. And so sometimes we need to figure out how to make a dollar stretch more, maybe not spend a dollar. I also have family that's educators. And so I think it's super important to make sure that we have money to pay teachers to recruit and retain the best. And so I think there's a balance in all those things. And I also want you to know that, sometimes opponents, it gets contentious, maybe, or whatever, but I want you to know I appreciate Stacy and all the time that she spent. And the time that she will spend in the future if she gets reelected, and that I'm here as a support if you need me in the future if I don't get elected. Because I've only been to a few board meetings, and I sit there for the hours, and I'm like, wow, that really takes a lot of time. But not only that, I think she spends hours outside of those time that you just see them also. And so I just want to thank you for the time you do spend, sincerely. I think it's awesome that I see maybe Julie is here too. And, there's a lot of time spent with the board. I don't know why many people really want to do something, but I want to do it because I think I have the time and I think I could be good and help. And I don't know that I do it better, but I do think I might have some perspectives that may help.
We want to thank both of our candidates and thank running for office is never easy. Putting your name out there is never easy. And thank you for the time and effort you're putting into this. And thank you, delegates, for coming and putting in the time and the effort vetting the candidates so that we can pick a nominee for ballot. Thank you.